earlier today about some of the when Brittany was subbing at Hayti School, and the first scripture we're going to go to is 1 Samuel chapter 16. But I was thinking about when she was subbing at the school, and I went up there one time, and she told the kids that I was a preacher or a pastor, I can't remember what it was at the time. And they looked at me, and I was in my work clothes, of course. And I just got off work and ran something up there for Brittany. And
you bought the rabbit.
He said, the kid, he said, you don't look like a preacher. He said, you don't look like a preacher. And I was thinking about that this afternoon. And I told the boy at the time, I said, well, what do you think preachers look like every day when they're outside of the church? You know, what do you think a preacher looks like when they go to work? Do you think a preacher that works in construction wears a suit to work? Or do you think a preacher that works at a Walmart wears a suit to work instead of the Walmart uniform? I said, you can't always judge by what you see when you first meet a person, or when you know, just in a person's everyday life. You can't always judge by what you see, because a minister doesn't always wear a suit and tie. A minister isn't always dressed up in a button-up shirt. They wear everyday clothes just like every other person out there in the world. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, in verse 7, it says, but the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance, or on his height, or his structure, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth. For man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. You know, so he's telling everybody, he's saying, you know, God doesn't He doesn't choose the leaders of his armies or the leaders of his people by how big they are, by how tall they are. He doesn't choose them by those things, because those things don't make up the heart and they don't make up the mind. He doesn't choose them by their outward appearance. He doesn't choose a leader of Israel because they're handsome, or because they're good looking, or because of all these things. He chooses a leader of Israel based upon their inwards, based upon their courage, their kindness, their love, their gentleness, all the things that make people great. That's what God looks at. And I began to think about how many times people judge people by their outward appearances, not necessarily judge them, more like first impressions. You know, it's kind of like that kid when he was looking at me, he said, you don't look like a minister. You don't look like a preacher. You don't look like a pastor. I had no shirt on, t-shirt on, had paint all over it, paint all over my pants, dirt, all this stuff all over me. But he looked at the first impressions of what he saw. He didn't know anything about me. He judged the things of me by the outward appearances, the thing that he's seen. And so many times we have to be aware, because we're guilty of doing the same things. And what they're talking about in 1 Samuel, he's saying that God doesn't choose his people. He said this person was refused by him. This person that they're talking about, he said that he was refused by me. He said, because I wasn't looking at his countenance. I wasn't looking by his height, by his stature. I wasn't looking by the way he was built. Oh, he looks real strong and muscular. He's going to be the best leader of the army that there is. But maybe he doesn't have the mental capabilities to come up with the strategies to win the war. You know, God knows what's on the inside. Everybody looks at outward appearances, and it's human nature. We begin to judge people by the outward appearances. We all have been guilty of it at some point. And we all have been judged by others at some point. We may not even know that we've been judged by others, but we all have at some point, and we all unknowingly, to some point, judge other people by what we see. You know, the appearances, they can be deceiving. True character is shown by a person's life and their actions, the things that they do, the life that they live. In Matthew chapter 17, verses 16 through 18, it says, "Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit. But a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit." So he's telling us we can't always judge things by the outward appearance, by what we see with our eyes. You know, the thing is you can take an apple, most beautiful, bright red or green apple, and hold it in your hand. And slice that thing open, and there'd be a worm in there crawling around on the inside. Never even could tell it from the outside. Might be a worm inside there. And you look at that apple, you go through here and you choosing these apples and say, well, I want this one right here because it's the most beautiful, brightest red apple. But the inside can be deceiving. You can't always judge it by the outside of it. The outward appearance of righteousness is worthless if it does not reflect accurately the inner character of a person. Matthew chapter 23, verses 27 and 28 says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are all like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanliness. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquities." He's talking about these white sepulchres. These were like burial instruments. These are things that people, when I hear that or think about that, I'm thinking of like my mind just wants to go to the example of the time of the Egyptians when they used the esophagus or what are they called? Sarcophagus. Not esophagus, sarcophagus. And they would have, the kings would have the most beautiful sarcophaguses that they would be buried in, kind of like a modern day casket. They would be mummified and put in these caskets, and they're beautiful. But they do not reflect the type of person that was put inside of them. You look at this beautiful sarcophagus, and when you open it up, what do you find? A bunch of old dried up bones. Bunch of old dried up bones. There's nothing, it's beautiful on the outside and completely dead on the inside. Don't be like the world. The world focuses on what is attractive for the eyes and drawing attention to yourself. 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 and 16 says, "Love not the world, neither bring things that are in the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world." We get so hung up on the things of the world, the beauties of the world, that we forget who created it. We forget the Creator that created all of these things. We're so hung up on these worldly things that we forget that there is more to them than what we see. You know, like we was talking about this morning, the spiritual warfare that goes on behind our sorrows and our hurts. The spiritual warfare that is happening while these things are going on. You know, we forget about those things. Just like we forget about who created the beautiful roses that are out in the yard. The rose bushes that bloom in the summertime. And I think about these rose bushes because Pawpaw planted these rose bushes at the house where we're living now. He planted them for Mamo out there because she loved to see those rose bushes. And I'll tell you what, those rose bushes get so big. I bet you there's 1,000 roses on those 3 rose bushes. There's so many roses on them bloomed right now. Every year it's the same way. I can cut them things off down even with the ground every year, and they are over my head by the end of summer. They grow so fast and beautiful. But when we go by there and we look at them, we say, well, those are beautiful roses. But we forget where they came from. We forget that God created those roses. God created the heavens and the earth. God created us. We forget, we are so caught up in the worldly things and what we can see with our eyes, the appearances that we see with our eyes, the beauty of things, that we forget where it comes from. But we also have to remember that our Christian influence and witness is affected by our appearances. You know why it's affected by our appearances? Because the world sees things like we see with their eyes. The world sees us just as we see the world. If you dressed like a thug or a gangster or worldly, the people will think that you are these things. You know, if you go around dressed in black and have black nail polish, a black lipstick, black hair, black clothes, what are your appearances telling people that you are? What do they call those people that are like that? They call them goth? Okay. So people are going to generally go to that term when they think of you, you know, because you're dressed this way. So if you dress certain ways, if you dress inappropriately everywhere that you go, we're not going to say what people think you are, even though we know what people think about people like this. But this is why we have to be careful about how we appear to other people. You know, a lot of times, you know, when we grow up, we're taught it doesn't matter what other people think. And to an extent, that is the truth. To an extent, it is the truth, because we can't base everything that we do off of what other people think. People think that we're crazy for being in this building right now. But we shouldn't care about that because we're here for God. But when it comes to different things, we don't want to dress like the world. And I'm not saying don't wear your jeans and t-shirts when you're outside of church or anything like that. I'm not saying don't do these things, but I'm saying it in other ways. If you go outside of this church and you wear a shirt that has profanity all over it, or put decals on the back of your car that say cuss words all over them, or you know, things like that, when you're driving down the road, what are people going to think? And then they see you parked in the church parking lot, coming into church every Sunday, and then on Monday you got all these shirts with profanity on them, wearing them out. What do people think? The first thing that comes to mind is hypocrite.
They need to get saved.
So those are the things that I'm talking about, that we have to be careful about what we do. You know, we don't want to, we have to filter the things that we do. And the thing is as Christians, we shouldn't want to go out and wear a shirt that's got profanity all over in the first place. Right. We shouldn't want to do those things. You know, God has changed us from those things. And we should avoid anything that causes confusion over what we stand for, because the world sees this. In 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 21 and 22, it says, "Prove all things, hold fast to that which is good, abstain from the appearance of evil." From the appearance. So this word appearance has come up again. Appearance is what we see with our eyes. It's what we perceive with our eyes. That's the appearance. And that's exactly what the Bible says. We should abstain. It doesn't say abstain from all evil, even though we know that applies here, because we shouldn't be doing the evil things. But it says abstain from all appearance of evil. That means that if it looks shady, we shouldn't be doing it. If it has the appearance of being shady, we shouldn't be doing it. I'm not a big fan of these. I never was a big fan of these vape things that came out when they first came out. Do I have any proof that you know, these things are going to send you to hell or anything like that? No, I don't. But it doesn't appear very good. It doesn't have a good appearance. Because what do people naturally first think about when somebody gets a vape out and starts vaping it? They naturally think, you know, that's something that a Christian wouldn't do. That's something that we should not do. Same thing with smoking cigarettes. You walk outside the church house, take off down the road. Before you get down the road, you got a cigarette lit up. Has the appearance of evil, has the appearance of wrongdoing. So we should stay away from those things. I think it was Papa that said, he told somebody one time that he didn't know if smoking cigarettes would send them to heaven or to hell, but he knows it would get them whichever place they were going a lot faster. And that's the truth of the matter. But the Bible doesn't say that we should be hung up on these middle gray areas of things. It says stay away from it. It says if it has the appearance of evil, we stay away from it. You know, being a follower of Christ will make you different from those around you. It makes you different from the crowd of people that you used to hang out with. So how come many times we say that when you come to God, you have to leave most of your old friends in the past. You don't have to quit being friends with them, but you can't hang out with them every Saturday night. We have to pull ourselves away from those things, because it's difficult for us as Christians to be in the area where we're tempted. We're supposed to remove ourselves from these things. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16, it says, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick. And it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." You know, one thing that we need to look at in this area is when we become a Christian, we're supposed to spread the gospel. We're supposed to tell others about Jesus. So if we go hang out with our friends and we begin to tell them about Jesus, if they're not ready to hear about Jesus, guess what? We're not going to have to worry about them wanting us to come hang out there no more. They have a tendency when you begin to talk about things that they don't care anything about, or they don't want anything to do with, or they want to avoid, they quit inviting you over. They quit coming around you. They quit doing these things. And it's in one way it's good because you have set yourself apart from them. In another way it's bad because they have closed themselves off. You know, they have closed themselves off and built up walls around so that nobody can get in that is trying to help them. You know, they don't see those things. They don't want to hear it. The spiritual implications of our appearance include more than just the way we look and dress. Appearance includes the life that we live and the things that we do and how we act. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 32, this is the last scripture. It says, "And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you." All of these things, if you're kind to people, other people see that. If you're tender-hearted with people, other people see that. It's something that they can see. It's your spirit coming out of you, your fruits coming out of you, manifesting itself in the flesh so that other people can see. That is the appearance that we want people to see, that we need people to see, is the kindness, the love, the tenderheartedness, the forgiving. This is the appearance that people need to see, not whether we wear t-shirts every other day of the week besides when we come to church. You know, that's not the type of appearance that should affect people. It's the appearance of the other things that we see. When we do kind things, say I'll just use this as an example. Brittany likes for me to pick up stuff and take it to the school for her classes whenever she's subbing. She likes to take the kids cupcakes. She likes to take them candy. She likes to give them prizes. She likes to give them things. She likes to spoil them. Okay, well that is kindness being shown. That is love being shown. Those are things that people can see. Those are things that manifest themselves in the flesh so that the world can see. It's the inner parts of us that have come out so that everyone can see.